All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Dana Atwood, and I'm a technology consultant from the East Central Ohio Educational Service Center. Today, we're going to be going over Google Forms, the basics, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper into it as time allows us today. But we're going to start from scratch, and we're going to go over some of the file situations that you need to prepare yourself with how to use before we start getting started with the actual Google Forms. And we're going to go over some of the ways that you may use this. So if you're questioning, how may I use this in my classroom or in my day-to-day life, this is kind of how we're going to start. Google Forms is basically a simple evaluation tool that allows you to plan events. You can make a survey or a poll. You can give students a quiz or collect other information in an easy, streamlined way with Google Forms. Today, we're going to start with being able to build your form, create it, design it, add and edit questions. We're going to go back to looking at how you can edit your form within the settings. We're going to share your form, we're going to send your form, and we're going to analyze the responses. And as time allows, we may dig into what you can do with your responses too. There are a couple different ways to get to your Google Forms. One way is from when you're logged in to your Chrome browser and on your actual Google account, you can click the 9 apps boxes on the top right, the gray 9 boxes, go down and click more, and then click on Forms. You can also access your forms through your Google Drive. You can click New, and then click More, and then click Google Forms from there. I'm going to hop over to my Google Drive and my account here. I'll show you when you click on your apps boxes at the top, you can click More and Forms is there. Or in your Google Drive, you can click New and More and your Forms is here. So that's how you get to that. One thing I want to say before we get started with our actual Google Forms. In your Google Drive, this is the way that you decide to go into it. One thing to keep in mind is that when you create a Google form, it automatically creates a Google spreadsheet. And this Google spreadsheet is what collects your responses from the people that you're sending your form or survey to. So what I like to do is I have a folder in my Drive that I created already called Forms. You can create it a folder for every form or that you decide to do, or you can create a folder for just one specific form. So you can title it maybe the folder, when you're creating your folder, title it the name of the form that you're doing. And then you can put both your Google form and your Google responses, which is the sheet, all in the Forms folder. So how I did that was I clicked New and I clicked Folder, and then I typed in the word Forms. So here's my Forms folder already. Now, if you're going to use this folder for all of your forms, you can add a new folder inside here. And I'm going to name this the name of my form. And then I'm going to click and drag both of those documents into my folder. So now as I get ready for my next new form, I'm going to click New Folder. Since I'm already in my Forms folder, I've got my Drive Forms. I'm going to make a new folder in here for my new form that I'm going to do. New folder. And I'm going to put, title this New Form for now. Since I came in here and I've got my form, which is the purple logo icon here. This is the logo for Google Forms. This is my actual form. And then this Sheets, the green icon here, this is the Google Sheets icon. So this is letting me know that this is my Sheets, and this is where the responses go. And one thing to keep in mind is that as you get new responses, your title here shows up in bold. So that way you can have that visual and that quick reference as well. I'm going to go back up to my forms folder, and in my new form, I'm going to double click here. Keep in mind that wherever you're at in your Google Drive, when you go to create a new form, that is where that new form will create. So if you're just under the main root of Google Drive and you come up and click new and form, it'll create here. That's why I kind of like to set up the forms folder ahead of time to have an idea of where my information will save, especially since it creates 2 files with each form that you do. So I like to have kind of just a little folder set up already where all that kind of sits at. All right, I'm going to go open up my new form folder, and now we're going to create our form. I'm going to click New and More and Google Forms. Google Forms recently went through an update within the last probably 5 months. You have an option where you can revert back to the old Google Forms, and that's the little guy running at the bottom left corner of your screen. So you can click that, and this takes you back to what the old forms used to look like. With the old forms, you have more settings and you have more options. The new forms is a little bit more basic, and the new forms is what we're going to go over today, just because that's what they're transitioning to. So at some point in time, this old forms, this look here, is going to go away. So that's why they want to get you used to the new forms. So today I'm going to be talking about the new forms. I may say a couple things that the old forms used to do, so bear with me on that. I'm going to switch back to the new forms here. I can click on Try the new Google Forms, and you can switch back and forth. So if you would like to learn in the and play around in the old Google Forms, it's not a problem. Again, there's no guarantee on how long the old forms will be around. With the new Google Forms, this is what we're going to go over today. So just a couple pointers as we go through this to learn the setup. Again, the bottom right, the bottom left corner, the little guy there, that's how you exit the new forms and go back to the old. The top left, you have an arrow where it takes you to Forms Home. This Forms Home gives you some templates that you can choose from and pick from as well. It also gives you any recent forms that you've visited or had shared with you. When you click on this More in the the gray box here at the top, these are some template ideas that you could take a look at and play around with as well. For education, you have the exit tickets. That's a hard word to say, sorry. Exit tickets, assessment, worksheets, and course evaluation templates that you can use. There's personal information such as contact information. You can do an RSVP, party invites, event registrations, and a couple others for work. Event feedback, a job application, request time off, work request. So you can use these. Google provides these as a stepping stone and a place that you can learn some ideas from. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to click on my recent forms. This is the one that we're currently on right now. And again, that was the arrow at the top left of your screen, not in your URL bar, but the top white one in the purple header of our actual Google Forms. Where it says Untitled, Untitled form is grabbing that from the title of your actual form here. So as I change my form title here, you notice it says New Form and it says Saving. It says All Changes Saved in Drive. But it didn't change this until I come up here and I click that, and then I hit Enter. So I can still change my form name if I needed to up here or here in the actual line. So it says all changes saved in Drive, just like our other Google products that we have with our Google Docs, our Sheets, and our Slides, and even as we're typing our email messages. Everything that we do in the Google Suite is all saved as you're going. So there is no save button. I'm going to take your attention now to the top right of the screen. You have this little paint palette. Right now, Google Forms is still in the transition of creating the new Google Forms. So this is, again, pretty much the stripped down version. So you can come in here and you can change the colors. In the old Google Forms, you had an option to change the theme. You can still sort of change the theme in the new forms, but it's not 100% the same. When you click on your palette, you can come down to where the image icon is. And then from here, you have some options to select a theme. So you can browse the different selections that they have here as they pop up. And you can find one that fits what you're looking for or something similar. And when you find one that you like, as you're scrolling through this section here, or any of them, just select it. It gets the blue box around it, and then you can click select. Right now in the new Google Forms, you can only change the top cover photo. The old Google Forms, it allowed you to change all of the text color, the text font, and it allowed you to make it smaller, larger, and it allowed you to do a lot more with it. I'm hoping that that's one of the features that Google's currently working on and rolling out shortly. If that's something that interests you and you'd like to play around with that, you can go back to the old forms and you can do that there. But since for today we're concentrating on the new forms, we're going to keep moving along here. To the right of your color palette option, you have Preview. Preview opens up a new window to show you what your form will look like when you send it. From here, you can fill out the form if it's a form that you would need to fill out as well, and you can click Submit. Or you can click on the Edit This Form icon and it takes you back to your form. Please note that it did open up a new window for you to preview your form, and now you have two tabs where you're editing your form from. So you can close one of those tabs. Next to your preview icon, we have the settings. The settings is kind of something that you want to make sure that you visit on each form that you do. And it's basically a set of questions that they ask you and that you have to preset to make sure that your form is going to work as you need it to. You want to ask yourself, who are you sending this form to? So who can respond to this? Now, if this is anybody that's actually within your domain that you're in right now, you want to say anyone in your domain. So let's say you're sending this to your students, to your teachers, or to the whole staff, or to the whole school. You want to make sure that it only says in your actual domain. If you're sending this outside of your school, so you're going to be collecting results maybe back from parents, maybe back from somebody that you're trying to collect other information on, but they're definitely outside of your domain, outside of your district. That's where you'll select anyone. Today, I'm going to keep this anyone inside my domain. You also have the option to automatically collect the respondent's domain username when you select this for anybody within your domain. In case you forget to put a name field on your survey, this is a great backup so that as soon as somebody responds and sends you a message, or your actual they send their response back to you through the submit button, it's going to automatically collect their whole email address. Now, if this isn't something that you're sending out and you want an anonymous response for, then I would make sure that this is not checked, because then you don't have to worry about obtaining information the wrong way then. You can also choose can submit only one response, so it requires a login. So if you only, the requires login, it has to do with your domain as well. So that person has to be logged into your domain, your district email account, and then they can submit their request and their response that way. But they can only submit one. If they hit this is not checked, then you can submit multiple responses. There's also a confirmation page And this is where you can say your response has been recorded. Thank you for taking the time to submit this. If there's additional steps that follows, you can include that information here. So you can just type that here in the box. You can also have the person that's submitting the responses have a few more a few more options at the end of this too. You can make it so they can submit another response. So you can uncheck this if you do not want them to. You can allow them to edit their response. If this is a quiz, I don't think that would be a good idea. If this is something that's just gathering information for down the line, then I would go ahead and select that there. You can also have a see summary of responses. So that'll allow you to be able to see what everybody else has turned in so far. You can also have a show progress bar and a shuffle order or shuffle question order. If you're taking a quiz and maybe you want the quiz to be different on every student's computer so they're not seeing the same questions at the same time, that would be a good option to select. But if you're doing something that's more informational and you need it to go in a certain order, I would not do that. The show progress bar that just shows you how many more pages is left in your quiz or in your survey if it's something that you're breaking down by pages. I'm going to go ahead and click cancel on this. We'll go over the send button here when we get to that point, so I'm going to skip that for now. Then you also have your 3 little dots here in a row, and that's our more section. In our more section, this allows you to do a little bit more, obviously, with your account. In our more section, you have the option to make a copy of your form that you're doing. So if this form is going to be used for maybe a few different things, maybe you need to tweak it a little bit here and there, maybe it's a different year and you're sending the same end of year survey to your class, but you need to change a couple things and you don't want to continue on the same responses form, but you want to start a new form, maybe add a few more questions, you can select make a copy. And then from there, the same as you do with your docs or your sheets or your slides, then you can edit that information and make that a whole different document. You have the option to move it to trash, which obviously just deletes it, and then it saves you can find it in your Google Drive trash can, and that'll be there until you manually delete it. You can get a pre-filled link, and this pre-filled link basically it answers questions you want to pre-fill, then click submit. So if you have a whole bunch of information already pre-filled, saved in your maybe records of your Chrome browser, such as like your name or address or something similar to that, it would pre-fill all that information in for you and you wouldn't have to retype it. You also have the option to print the survey. You can add collaborators. So if this is something that maybe you and another coworker are working on together, this is where you would add them. The script editor, we're not going to get too much into that today just because it's a little bit more advanced. And the same with the add-ons. I may try to touch on that here at the end and maybe show you a little preview of what we can do with that. The Help Center, obviously, if you're stuck and you can't find something that you're looking for, that's a great place to start and look at there. And then you also have the Report a Problem and Take a Tour. All right, and the Take a Tour, again, is just a little run through of the Google Forms. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our form and kind of show you a couple of the things that you can do with your Google form. And basically, again, what you need is you have to have your Google account. Again, most of our school districts are already switched to a Google Apps for Education school. So we already have that. And again, we can find this by getting to it from our Google Drive under New, More, and Google Forms. In Google Forms, you don't have to be somebody that has a lot of technology experience in creating one of these. It's as simple as you can have one done in 10 minutes, basically, on depending on how much content you really want to put into it and how long you want this to be. All right, so we're going to get started on actually building our form. And it's a couple things that you need to start thinking about as you're starting to do this. You want to get in your head kind of what design you're looking for and kind of the questions. Is this going to be, a multiple question quiz? This is, true and false. What survey are we doing here? Are we doing, an informational survey where, we want them to select answers, or do we want them to fill out a short answer? So it's kind of a couple things that, is going through your head as you're starting to do this and kind of wrap your head around that. Maybe you have a couple examples of quizzes that you've used paper. I pull that out and I look at those. And as you're starting to formulate the questions in your head and starting to figure out how you want to transition your paper copy to the electronic copy, you'll at least have that comparison to be able to bounce back and forth with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over to a form now that I've already created. And this is my History of Ohio quiz that I started. So you'll see right now that I inserted my own, or not my own, but I inserted a picture theme that Google had. And then you'll see I'm on the questions tab. I have it named. And I came down to where it says the name of my form, and I put in the name. There's also a little description field underneath the name of the quiz or the name of your survey, and I just put in there, how well do you know Ohio? So this is just something that is going to be more of a descriptive to your quiz or to your survey, just to give the end user a little bit more information. So that you have two spots there. You have the name of it, and this can be several paragraphs long as well. There's really no limit within that. And as you notice, I have a couple questions in here already. So pay attention to some of the questions formats. So we know that with a multiple choice question, you can have more than one answer with the check boxes. Now with the radio buttons, you can only have one answer. So here's an example of my radio boxes. And then here's an example of my check boxes. So as I look through here, this is my question. I can click in my question box and I can type my question here at the top. And then at the very right here next to my question, this is where I have the option of how I want to make my actual question look and be able to formulate the answers. So in this question, I made this a multiple choice with the radio buttons. You also have the option to do checkboxes, drop down, short answer, and paragraph. You can also include a linear scale, a multiple choice grid, and you can also put the date and time in your questions as well. Those usually help better for more of a survey than the quiz setup, but you have those options too. So now when people fill out the forms, and also remember that their email addresses aren't automatically gathered unless you check that box. But again, these are the options that you have for your questions. So as you're comparing your paper quiz, or maybe a quiz that you kind of already jotted down that you want to transfer to the electronic version, this is where you start thinking about those, the setups and how the question reads. The drop-down box, I will show you what that looks like here in the preview. When I click choose, it allows me to select which one here. So again, with the drop-down box, you can only select one. So you can see that my one answer is here. Now, if I come back again for multiple choice, I'm going to click preview again. And then here's my multiple choice with my radio buttons, but you can, again, only select one. Notice come down here, I've got another question. I have also select all that apply. So I can come down here and I can select all of them, or I can only select one. So however you want it to be for your select all that apply, or how many answers you want it to be here, you can do that here as well. Also, with our questions, we have the option to do to type your own text. So rather than fill out another multiple choice, you're able to type in the box. So we have a short answer option and we have a paragraph option. The paragraph is obviously a longer answer. A short answer is going to be a couple words. I'm going to go back to my preview here, and in my short answer, I can just type in my number here and then keep going with my quiz. So that's kind of just a quick little preview of what type of questions you can put into your actual survey or quiz itself. Also going over the question. So after you type in your question or your whatever you're wanting to get back, and you can select how many answers here, you can add more. So if I wanted to add another city to my question here, I can click Add Option, and I can type that in. When I'm done, I can press Enter if I want to type in another city below here as well. But when I'm done, I'm just going to click off of the box itself. Enter will bring in another one. Now let's say I wanted to remove one of these from the list as well. I can click the X over here to my right and it removes that. If you'd like to add an other, where you wanted the person to add in their own information, you have the option to do that. So they can come down here and select other and then type in their answer. At the bottom of our question field that we have, note the little duplicate icon here. When you mouse over that, it says duplicate. That duplicate icon, what that'll do is it'll actually duplicate that question. So if you're asking another similar question, but you maybe have to tweak a couple things and you don't want to have to retype the whole thing or re-put in all of the answers again, you can click that button and it's going to actually duplicate. So now you've got two of those questions and you can manipulate it from there. And then you have the delete button. So maybe this is a question or a setup that you're not liking how it's going, you want to start over again, maybe you don't need it anymore, you can go ahead and click delete. The required is basically showing you that this is a required question. Notice that in my next question here, I have a star next to, of course, as I clicked on it, it goes away, next to my question here at the end. That star meaning is what shows you that it's a required question. And then when I click off my question here at the top, I don't have that star anymore. By requiring this question means you cannot pass, you can't submit the form to be done unless you have this question answered. On quizzes, it's definitely a must that this gets turned on. In the old Google Forms, it used to be a little box down here at the bottom of your question, so you didn't miss it because it was right there in that line. I found myself in the new Google Forms forgetting that it's all the way over here to click and turn that on. The little white button means that it's not turned on, and then when it switches over and turns to little green, you know that it's on. Another visual to make sure that you see that whenever you go to preview your form before you send it, you can see this, the star, the asterisk there at the end of the question. So notice I made all my questions required. It's really important, especially when you're sending out even just a plain survey. The main reason you're sending out your survey is to gather information back. And if you have a user that forgets to put that information in there or just doesn't want to put any information in there at all, it's, they could submit it without that being required, and then you just don't have that information back. So again, that's just a simple little visual to check here. You have the more options here where you can add a description to your question. The description basically is another helpful text, similar as to how well do you know Ohio here at the top. So if this is more of a two-line question where you have the main question here at the top, this is where you can add some more helpful text. Maybe you have students that are just now starting to learn how to take online-based quizzes. You can describe, or you can write out to them here that this is a question showing a radio boxes, or I'm sorry, radio dial buttons, and how you can only select one answer versus the check boxes you can select multiple. So it's just, something that's additional, that if you need that, it's there for you. You do not have to use that. And again, I got to it by clicking the three little icons here at the bottom right, and I click description. So if you don't need that anymore, you can click off of it. I'm going to put it back on just so I can show you that example. Please select only one answer. Yes, it'll only allow you to select one, but at the same time, I'm just trying to show you how it's going to look. You also have the option to go to a section based on what your answer is. So kind of like the jump around, where you're going to be able to come to this training, then you can go to the next answer if they answer yes. If they answer no, it can take you to a different question as well. We're not going to get that far into it today. Again, this is pretty much the basic setup of everything. And then you have, again, the shuffle option order. So if you have kids that are sitting close by, maybe they're looking at each other and they see that they select the top one and they're on the same question, this would be a situation where you would want to move it around so that maybe they're not just looking at everybody else's screen, so then their answer would be different. And again, those are all the questions and selections that you can do based on your question itself. You also have this floating icon here to the side. And this allows you to click where you can add the next question. You can add a title and description. So if you're starting a new page, you can do that there, or even through your form, you can do that. You can add an image, you can bring in a video, and then you can add a section. I'm going to click on add a question, and we're going to start from the top here. So I'm going to add my own question here, and I have my question here on my other screen, so I'm going to just type it in over here. Okay, so here's my question. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to type my answers. Okay, so I have all the answers that it could possibly either be, or the ones that obviously the correct one is in there somewhere. So now I say, do I want this to be a multiple choice? Do I want this to be check boxes or drop down? I'm going to select drop down on this. I'm going to make this a required question, and then I can move on to the next one. Oops. And I'm going to make this a multiple choice. True, add option, false. I'm going to make this required. All right, so right now I've added a couple more questions to my survey or my quiz. I'm going to come up at the top and click on preview just to kind of see what this is looking like right now. All right, so right now this is what it's going to look how it's going to look when you send it to the person that is actually going to fill out the survey. So here we've got the name of it, History of Ohio Quiz. How well do you know Ohio? It says your username, and it'll have their username, will be recorded when you submit this form. I made it that way because I want to be able to email everybody that takes this quiz their grades back when I'm able to use my extension through my Google Sheets down the road here. So I definitely made that a requirement. So now I can take my quiz. All right, which city boasts America's first traffic light in 1914? It's a badly worded question, but you still get the idea. So you'll see it's a required question, and then you'll see where it says, please select only one answer. So this is where you'll see your help text down here underneath the question. And notice that I don't have it on the other ones, I only included it here. So obviously I created it, I know the answer, so I can click on Cleveland. But if I don't feel like it's any of them, I entered my other question where I can select other, but I still have to type in something. I can't just select other. So now I can just type in whatever I feel like. And notice that my required text message went away. So now there's nothing. So your student can't just click other and keep on going. They have to type in something here. And if they come back up and choose the other option, they can do that as well. What they typed in still stays there. It will not show in their responses, just the selection that they chose. All right, then you can come down and continue with your quiz or survey. Here's our drop-down box. So you can select the answer that you want there. And again, our true and false. And then our short answer, we can type in maybe obviously the answer that it could be. When you do answers like this, and then you're going to fill out down the line, if you're going to use the extensions to answer, to grade the quiz itself, the short answers and the long answers get a little bit tricky. Obviously, if you type in the number 7 or you write the number 7, you'll have to make sure that you choose one way or another. Because if you do the grading the other way, it'll only select what you have as your answer key. So if you want to add that helpful text, this is where the situation where that would come in handy. So on my question here, in my description, I'm going to type, please enter the number, do not spell it out. Example, so as I spell it out. All right, example 3, not 3. Something similar to that. You get the idea. So that way, that's another description or a spot of where that helpful text is going to be. I'm going to go back to my quiz up here at the top. I obviously have to go back into it because I made a change. So now here's my helpful text. Please enter the number, do not spell it out. Example 3, not 3. So this is where then you can type that in. And again, we have the multiple check boxes here. And then we have another one that's a single question. So I'm going to go back up here and fill out my answers again. Cleveland, okay. So now we can see again that we had all of our required questions. Everything looks to be answered. Okay, and this is just a graphic that I included in there, and you can do that as well. You also have the option to send the copy of responses to yourself. I do that sometimes just to make sure that the form actually went through, in case the teacher or staff member would come back later and say, or if I never got it, I can say, hey, did you send that? And they said, yeah, I sent it to you. Well, then they can say, hey, well, did you happen to send the copy to yourself? Could you forward that to me? And that way, it kind of protects you too. So you can do that if you want. And you can click submit. And then this is the response where it shows that your response has been recorded. So this is what shows up here. So now if you had additional steps in your form, you can change that in your settings icon, where now you can add your additional steps or whatever here. Now the option to submit another response is open. Obviously, I showed you in the settings part where you would turn that off. So this is where you would uncheck submit another response. And then again, this is where you can add your more detailed information. But this is just a generic that shows up here. So that's basically kind of the quick and dirty rundown of adding your own your questions, getting it to look how you want it to. If you wanted to move your questions yourself, you can change that order here by clicking and dragging. When you mouse over the box, you get these 6 little boxes that pop up there. So you can click on those and drag them down, drag them up, drag them to wherever you need them to be on the actual section here. Maybe I want to move my image all the way to the very top. I can do that here, and I can then preview my form, History of Ohio, and then it starts with my quiz. So it's whatever order you want it to be in, but you can still, move that, manipulate that, and change that down the road as you go. All right, so this is our preview. I'm going to close this, come back to my actual question here. I'm going to move this back down to the bottom. All right. So I'm going to go over the sharing of this real quick here. I'm sorry, the add collaborators, essentially called the sharing, is that we're used to saying within our Google Docs. All right, now while we're in here, and it kind of gives you a little note right here. It says, note, editors will be able to view and delete form responses. So one thing that you want to keep in mind when you're sharing this with somebody else and having them work with you, know that when the responses come back in, they'll be able to see that and delete them. So this is Google just reminding you that, hey, if this is something that's really super serious and really important, you may not want to share that with other people, or you just want to make it so that they can change, so that their rights are restricted a little bit. So let's say you just want to send it to somebody and get their opinion of it first. It's not a problem. But if this is something that you want to manage, just make sure that you know that the responses could be deleted. So anytime you come in here to share something, it's obviously, we should be in habit by now of looking at your editing rights. So you can make it, actually, the only way that they can do that in here is can edit. It's been a while, or they must have just changed this too. I thought they were able to view it, but Google must have just changed that recently. But so anytime that you share this with somebody, they are going to be able to edit and view it, and they can do any of that with it. You can notify them by email. Again, every time that you do notify the person that you share it with, try and get in the habit of sending that message with it again to make sure they know it's not spam. Include it. Here's the yearbook survey that I sent, or that we talked about doing. Just wanted to make sure that you saw this. Please let me know what you think. Go ahead and add anything or change anything, and we'll go from there. Whatever brief message you want to include in here. This just makes it more personal when you share it. You also have the option to send a copy to yourself, and you can also prevent editors from changing access and adding new people. So if you don't want this person to add more people to the form, this is a good check box to do, because you still are the owner, You're not making them the owner, you're just making them able to edit it. So if you do want to copy to yourself, you can click that, and if you want that checked as well there, you can prevent them from changing access and adding new people to the page. And then you can click send. So then this document then shares with that person. All right, and now when your document is done, you've maybe shared it with people that you need to, you've been able to work out your misspellings, you've been able to make sure it's exactly what you want, you can go ahead and send out your form itself. So under send, we have a few more options that we have to make sure that are good to go before we do that. The first checkbox here says automatically collect the respondent's name. So this is the name within their district. Now, again, if this is something that you're sending anonymously, I would uncheck that. But if this is something that you want to have their name recorded back, I would definitely get in the habit of leaving that checked. You also have the option to send this via an email or a link, so you can send a link to the person. You can also click to shorten the link, so it kind of shortens that a little bit more for you with the Google URL shortener. And you also have the option to embed the text. If you're a tech person putting this on maybe your school website, or if you're a teacher using this maybe on your actual Google Sites page, you can include the embedded HTML from here. Again, you can do that with the link as well. That does the same thing, but this kind of embeds it with a little bit more of a graphic interface with it too. This is pretty new as well. You can add it to your Google+, Facebook, or Twitter from here. Obviously, if you're sending it outside of your domain, you can do that. If not, that'll make the person log in to their Google account when they go there. And if they're not within your domain, then they can't see it. So this is where you start typing your to. As soon as you do that in your domain, the names start popping up. The subject, maybe the name of your form, history of Ohio quiz, and then message. Please fill out this quiz and click submit. When done, after you are finished taking this quiz, please read a book. There we go. So this would be your message to the students, obviously, for instruction for what to do afterwards, or you could even do that in your actual ending message as well. If this is maybe a survey that you're sending out, you can just add whatever information, but this is what they get in their email. The include the form in the email is a little tricky. If you have just a couple answer or a couple of very short quiz that you're sending out, I would do that. If your quiz is kind of long, several pages even, I would not include this option. What this kind of does is it kind of breaks down your whole quiz, and it doesn't include the whole quiz. You can't really see all of it. So it may cut off part of it and you won't be able to see it. So I really don't select that from here. But once you're done with that, you can click send, and then it shares that form out. You can go back to your send and send it to more people from here. You can't really see a list, unlike in your Google Docs. You don't see a whole list of who it gets sent to or who you do that with. You can only see who you've shared it with. But as I go back to my email, I'll show you that this is the email that the students receive, or the people that are taking your survey. Please fill out the quiz and click submit when done. After you finish taking the quiz, please read a book. How well do you know Ohio is the name of the quiz. And it says, I've invited you to fill out the form, History of Ohio quiz. To fill it out, click here. All interested students or whoever's taking it has to do is click that link, and then they're taken straight to the form. So that's kind of the quick run through there of how to actually share out your form or send it out to get people to have it returned back to you. Now, as people start getting your form and filling it out, you'll see the responses tab highlight up here. The responses is everybody that has taken the quiz. You can see the summary here, who has responded, and see the list start populating with their email address. You can also see individual responses, so you can see the person for how they took the quiz, and then you can go through, see what their individual answers were through here. Sometimes it's a little easier, sometimes it's not. You have another option here of accepting responses. You can turn that off. So if this quiz was due by noon today, and it's 12:01, I can come in here and I can click this to turn off for accepting responses. So I will receive no more after that certain time. If you forget to do that or don't do that, you will be able to see the timestamp, I believe, in the Excel spreadsheet, or I'm sorry, the Google Sheets spreadsheet, and I can kind of show you where that is too, just so you can see what time it came in. You have a couple more options here. It says to get email for notifications for new responses, select response destination, unlink the form. You can download the responses as a CSV file. You can print all responses, and you can even delete all responses. But this little summary here also kind of gives you a visual. So it says which Ohio, or well, now that it tells you who responded here, if it doesn't say responded, I believe it says invited or sent. I forget what it said. Or maybe has not responded. But this is just kind of a quick little visual of who you sent it to and if they finished taking it or not. But as you go down through, the new Google Forms gives you kind of a quick little viewpoint of who responded back and what the percentage was of getting it right. So I know that my first question here had all the correct answers in it. And then I added a couple questions since I had a couple people help me with it as well. But you'll kind of get the gauge, you'll see an idea of, all right, did everybody get this quiz? Did everybody not get the quiz? It keeps your misspellings in here. I found that out the hard way. So just keep a mind of, keep that in mind as you're doing this as well. But again, that's just your quick responses. Now, if you wanted to see this, what it looks like in your Google Sheets, again, remember that it already creates that for you. So that's why I recommend putting this in a different separate spot. So it dropped it in here. But this is what it looks like in our actual Google Sheets program. So this is our student submissions. It has our timestamp. So it shows, obviously in military time, that at 14:31, that's when the first answer came in. And then it records the rest. So if this was due at 12 o'clock, you'd be able to see what time that the student actually turned it in if you don't turn off the accepting responses anymore. But it recorded my username and as the email address, and then it shows you what answers that each person picked. And obviously it kind of cuts off here, but you can make it bigger there in that selection. And then a couple of the other ones that I actually added here. If you notice, I copied a duplicate question earlier, this which Ohio city boasts. Notice it added it here too. Basically, it keeps the history of all that too. So if that's something that you don't need anymore, you can come in here and you can delete that column so that way it's no longer needed. But this is where it has all your information. You can also see the summary of responses here as well. So it gives you kind of a different viewpoint and different outlook this way. So just a heads up that you can have that option, not only necessarily in your actual Google form itself, but you have it in Sheets too. And then from here, you can also analyze your responses after you create your form and send it out. You can review in a couple different ways. Obviously, this was how you can view it in your Sheets. Again, you can view your responses here. And then from here, you can also download your responses as a CSV file, and you can manipulate it that way if need be. And then you can manage your responses from there. All right, now I do want to show you real quick. We do have just a few more minutes left. I'm going to go back to our sheets here. So again, this is the file that, this is our Google form, and this is the sheets that our Google form automatically created for us. And this is where our responses go as well. In Google Sheets, you have the option to add add-ons. You click Get Add-ons, and we're going to search this one for Flubaroo. Flubaroo, what this one does is it allows you to manage some of your content here, and allows you to quickly grade a few of these online assessments that we've done as well. So I've already installed it, and I've kind of already done a little bit of this for you, just so you can see how easy this was kind of to do and to set this up. To initiate and to set up your add-on, once you do this, once you add it to it, you come back and you come into Flubaroo and you click on Grade Assignment. This is Regrade Assignment, so I'm going to click that because I have a few more options that came in. All right, so basically what this does is it identifies the columns that we have. So our username field that we had over here on the side is going to identify the student, so there's no grade associated with that. Then it goes through and it allows you to select the questions and give a weight grade for all the grading. So you can change it to skip a grading, or skip if it's not a question that you want graded, like your short answer ones, you could do that there as well. The grade by hand, that's a new feature. You can do that as well there too. And then obviously the weight of the question. So if this is a question that's weighted more heavy, you'd be able to select that there. And then all you have to do is make sure that all those line up correctly and click continue. And then from here, it's basically saying, please select which submission should be used as the answer key. Typically, this will be a submission made by you. All other submissions will be graded against the answer key. So please take care to ensure that you select the right one. So I believe it's going to be one of these last ones here. We'll do this one. And I'm going to go ahead and click continue. So right now, Flubaroo is grading my assignment, and it says it was completed. So then if you've noticed, here's my student submissions tab at the bottom. I went ahead and opened up another one called grades and created a new tab in my Google Sheets. It shows my summary, where there were 7 points possible, the average points, the counted submissions, and the number of low score questions. Again, this wasn't a real quiz that was sent out. I just had a couple people helping me with it. And even I purposely put it through a couple in there with incorrect answers just to show you that difference. So now basically what this does is it shows you down here the submission time again and the username. So we still have that information. We have the total points, the percentage, the time submitted. So obviously I have 2 up here for this user. So that could be a issue, but you'd be able to address it from there. I've already emailed the grade here. So I get that because I did that earlier to kind of test this out to make sure it was going to work, but I'll show you how we can do that again. It also will show you some questions that nobody got the answer correct from. And then it shows you the ones that they did and how much they were worth. So it kind of gives you that visual there too. Then what you do is you come back up to your form. add-ons, and Flubaroo. From here, you can share your grades, which is emailing them. Then you can also view your report. So this will kind of show you that the highest score for the submissions was that they had 4 points was the highest scored. So obviously, as you have more students in here, the more that you're doing, the more activity, it's going to show a little bit more. Under add-ons, you can do, you can click edit help tips, edit student feedback. Advanced, you can get a little bit deeper into it, and then about Flubaroo and help. I'm going to click on share grades right now, and basically what this is going to do, it's going to show that the username is the email address, the grade sharing method, share via email. You can also send it by Google Doc as well. You can include the list of questions and scores. You can include the answer key if you'd like to. If not, it's not required. And then your message. Thank you. Better luck next time. Just something, that you want to include back to your students if you're sending a quiz out. You can click continue. And then what this does is it's sending an email then. It says 1 grade was successfully shared. So it won't resend a grade that was already sent to a student. It's going to send it to the ones that have not already had a grade sent to them. So this is going to show my grade. It's going to say I got 0 out of 7. Here's my message. Here's the username, the submission time, and then here is where it shows you what your question was and what you answered, and it was incorrect, and how many points you got for it. So I really didn't do too hot on that one. How about this one? Nope, same on that one. I think I just kind of ran through those real quick. And then it shows, this is what I get on my user end, where it says below is a summary of the grades I just shared, and then it includes my response here. So I see both of those because I took the quiz and I'm the one that obviously was the owner of the document too. So again, that was just a quick little run through, a brief little setup of what you can do with the results once you have them back. That was more of like, Flubaroo is great for a quiz situation, maybe not so much with the actual survey information, but it shows you where that information goes and a little bit more of what you can do with it. Again, this is basically the basics of creating the Google Forms and being able to show you what, again, the basics were with it. So I'm going to leave it here today. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and we can go from there. And hope to see you back again for another webinar that we have down the line. Thank you for your time today.